Welcome back to the Nullified Tech channel here on YouTube, where I've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor Heroes vs Villains episode 10. That's right, I'm back. It's week 3, and what an episode to start this week off on. You just had one of the best weeks, I think, in Survivor history last week, week 2. So it was, safe to think that maybe week 3 is not going to be able to hold that momentum. But an excellent start to this episode and a lot to talk about. But before we get into the top 5 takes, please consider subscribing. Please consider liking and commenting on this video. It does help with the YouTube algorithm, and it's the best way to support the channel. Absolutely free to do so as well. Let's get into take number 1. Shonny and George is firmly atop and the new Heroes tribe. In this episode, we can see Shonny relaxing in the beginning of the episode, George relaxing with her. They've got both Stevie and Jerry in the alliance. Very interestingly, we didn't see anything from Jerry in this episode, but Stevie and George obviously getting along very well now. And sitting at the top, we've got Flick, Benji, and Matt coming over to grovel at their feet. They know that they're now on the outs. Flick has been a nemesis of George's for 2 seasons now. Now, Flick and Matt both come up to them with the same strategy of saying that they could be double agents for their alliance when they get to the merge, and Stevie rightfully sees through it, saying that it's absolute BS, and I believe that as well. I think Flick and Matt are both heroes strong to the core at this stage in the game, and probably wouldn't go over that way if they were to be saved. But Benji at this stage is so lost in his strategy, and I'm really finding it hard to see any of the brilliance we thought he had early on in the season, because he goes up to George and says that he was intimidated by George because of his big threat in the game. It doesn't really seem like someone that he could work with. I question why you would go up to somebody and tell them that they're a big threat in this game, because that would always make that person feel like if you had an opportunity to take a shot and finish the job in the future, you'd probably want to do it. I think Benji's only saving grace at this point in the game is the fact that he is not tight with the other side, and that is something that rather keep the enemy of my enemy close in this game at this stage. If I was both George or Shonny, I would take a shot at Flick and Matt in that tribe moving forward. Now, takeaway number 2, I kind of felt like this whole episode was Liz's coming out episode. And when I did my rankings about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and I said that Liz was in the running potentially to win this game because she's tight in that Spice Girl alliance and she's learning from 2 of the best players that Australian Survivor has ever seen, I kind of lost a bit of hope with her last week when we didn't get a lot of content from Liz. But seeing her here this episode broken down on her own and feeling very deflated because she's no longer in the same tribe as Shonny. If I was Liz, I'd feel exactly the same way if I wasn't in the same tribe as Shonny. I would also be broken like she is. But, we see her thinking of a plan of how to move forward. She's not just going to sit there and rely on Shonny and George to be the brains for her. She's got a plan. And what I liked about this episode is the whole time we saw her strategy, we saw her thinking, her talking about how she's perceiving the rest of her tribe mates, and that she's not fitting in with this bro alpha male alliance dominance that is currently in the supervillains tribe. And she talks about the fact that she's lowering her threat level in a way where she's not a very social part of the conversations, so that people won't notice if she's there or not there. And that gives her the opportunity to sneak away and find an idol of her own, and following in the footsteps of Shonny, who's like a sister to her in this game. What I really like about Liz is that she's not only worried for herself, but she wants to take numbers with her in this game. And she knows that Shonny's got an idol that she could potentially use to keep both herself and Geordie safe in the game, because Geordie is the one person she's working with very closely in that tribe. Simon clearly is a villain, but throughout this episode, I think they knew that he was trying to really suck up and get into that supervillains OG Heroes alliance moving forward in the game. So overall, really enjoyed this episode from Liz. I thought she had great reads, even at the tribal council, when people were starting to whisper and she thought that something was up. If Geordie didn't tell her to relax and go with the flow, I think she would have played her idol. She didn't feel 100% comfortable, and this episode was a very, very good opportunity for her to learn from someone else's biggest mistake in the game, which is Geordie's mistake of trying to do too much. And I think she will take this lesson on board and become more lethal in this game as we move forward in the season. Another thing that also I think Liz was sort of correct and was questioning Geordie when he wanted to hold both of Nina and Hayley hostage to the vote. She kind of seemed reluctant to do it, but I feel like because Geordie's played this game before, she kind of fell in line and thought, well, he's done it before, he's gone pretty deep, let me trust his instincts. But now with him being out of the game, dare I say it might be a good thing for Liz, because she's going to be able to trust her own judgment and instincts even more so in the game. So it might look like it's a dire situation for her, but she does still have that idol that she can use at the next tribal council. Now, takeaway number 3, Geordie. He just couldn't stay away from wanting to create chaos, from wanting to be the Joker. I said it last season, great TV character, but I don't always know if he's got the right mindset to go deep in the game. And I mean, he did get voted out pretty early that season as well after the merge, and then was lucky enough to come back and fight his way back into the game to go a lot deeper. But if you look at when he was voted out, he overplayed his hand, and I think he fell into the same trap here and overplayed his hand once again. Now, Liz does a lot of great work here with Shawnee in this episode to get that second idol, and Shawnee gives that idol to Geordie, which makes him feel like he's got all this power in the game. And he goes up to Hayley and Nina, and he tries to get them to flip over to their alliance and to vote with them. And I think one of the reasons he chose Nina was because both him and Nina were in the same tribe in their previous season. So obviously he kind of felt like he had a connection with her, but clearly this Nina is not the same Nina that we saw play the game in Blood vs. Water. She is happy to fall in line, and she's happy to be a number at this stage for the OG Hero Alliance. But when someone comes up to you and they force you by saying, both of us have got idols, they show the idols, you have to vote in a certain way. If you start whispering at Tribal Council, the vote's going to come your way. I don't know if that's a way to make friends in this game, because they definitely didn't feel like doing it, and Geordie and Liz may have gotten them on board for this one vote, but I think next vote they both would have been in trouble regardless. So I feel like Geordie really misread this situation, or maybe thought that he had a better relationship with Nina in the game than what he did have. But there was some interesting dynamics within the conversation that they had that gave us little tidbits of information. I'm always on the Nina watch because I want to see what she's doing in the game, and she doesn't get a lot of airtime this season. And one of the things that stood out for me was that she wanted to save David in this spot, and she said that that's the person that she's not willing to vote against. Hayley was very reluctant to say any name, and at one point I actually thought Hayley was going to get Nina to say both names, but they do end up sort of getting on Sam, saying that Sam is the person. Hayley says if we betray him once, he's not going to trust us in the future, so Sam is the sacrificial lamb that they're willing to vote out in this spot. Now, my opinion is that Geordie and Liz, they should have kept this, and obviously it's easier to say this in hindsight now that we know how this played out, but I've always said you don't really want to tell people you've got an idol, and especially in an alliance that is this strong. I think they should have kept it a secret, and they should have put all their votes on Sean, who I think is a legitimate threat to win this game and is clearly running this tribe at this point. I can't wait to see the after show interviews to get a bit of an idea as to why people weren't voting for Sean. Is it just because he is that likable of a bloke? Well, a likable bloke is the guy who can win $1 million at the end, so I just don't understand why they didn't take the biggest physical threat, and by the looks of it at the end of this episode, maybe even the biggest strategical threat in that specific OG Heroes alliance. Lastly, I want to say on this move that if they really wanted to preserve their idols, there's such a high risk to that game if you're wanting to call someone's bluff, that I feel like they should have taken a leaf from both Sam and Mark's gameplay last season. They kept both their idols at camp. Then at least if one of them got voted out, they wouldn't have gotten voted out with the idol in their pocket, and the other person who remains in the game would have had 2 idols if they knew where it was hidden back at camp. So I feel like there was something different they could have done. Geordie played with Mark and Sam, so he should have thought back about that potential contingency plan if he was going to play a high-risk strategy like he did in this game. Now, number 4 here is Sean is clearly the only person in my mind that potentially could still win this game from the OG Heroes tribe. I don't think anybody else isn't getting enough of an edit, and some people may argue that Hayley still has a chance, and I think that if Hayley wasn't a previous winner in the game, I would have agreed with that. I think that she would have had a better chance based on the edit that she's getting, because at least we are getting some confessionals from her, giving us tidbits of her strategy in the game, which is more than I can say for David and Nina at this stage. Sam is clearly the good old boy, the trustworthy guy in the tribe that is all about mateship. He did have some good reads this episode, I will give him that. When things started going against them, you could see, having played the game before, he knew something was up, and it was interesting to see how quickly his mates turned against them. Sean being very willing to let go of Sam and then replacing him with Simon was interesting to me as well, and seeing Simon say that he would only trust the idol to Sean, who he believes is an honorable guy. I think all of these things are very good and plays in Sean's favor at this stage. He's clearly well respected. He's clearly a leader in that group, and everybody is looking up to him, and nobody looks like they're going to go against him. In fact, I think Simon may become that loyal soldier for him, and if he sits next to Simon at the end, I can see Simon getting to the end and get 0 votes against Sean. So if I was Sean, I would drag Simon all the way to the end, because I think Simon will be loyal to the soil if he was to be given a chance here by Sean in this game. So Sean, to me, is continuing to build his soldiers. Sean is the one also in this episode that says, hey, I've got a plan, let's mix it up. Both Nina and Hayley, you guys keep voting with both of Geordie and with Liz in this vote, and then we will vote for Geordie in case he doesn't play it. So it'll be 4-4. So he comes up with that plan to split the vote, which ultimately saves Sam in this spot. So I was surprised that no one else thought about that, and I think a lot of them were just that fearful of having the idols in play that they were scared to come up with a counter plan. But Hayley going up to Sean also after this conversation to let him know about the idols, again, just proves that he's getting all the information. Everybody's running to him. He's playing a very dominant game at this stage. Let's talk about Simon. So where does Simon go in this game from here? You know, Simon is now part of this alliance of heroes after he betrayed the villains. He voted against his mate Geordie, which is understandable. I don't blame him at all. Geordie already stabbed him in the back, so, you know, why would he want to work with him in the future? But does his game have any longevity? You know, all of his flaws is currently being shown to us as the viewers consistently. You know, his ability to not even keep his face straight when Hayley is giving him information about the idols clearly shows he doesn't have a poker face. His strategy, sort of burning the villains at this stage and giving his one safety in the game away, I can understand that, listen, it can only save him one specific episode. And then after that, he's still going to go home if he's not a part of the core, so he has to ingratiate himself. One thing I will give Simon, though, now that I think about it, is the fact that at least he took some power back, because they wanted him to give that idol to that group, and he said, I will do that, but with one caveat. I will be the one to choose who gets the idol. So at least he had some say in that in a certain way, and that builds a different level of trust with Sean, because now Sean knows that he's willing to trust him with this idol in the game. The other part of this, I think, is that, you know, him coming up with this plan to save one of the other people on the other side, so to save either a Matt or a Flick, by giving the idol to the other side, at least controls where that idol goes. So now that idol can't be used against him within the tribe that he's in. So I will give him credit. I think he did some good stuff here this episode, but I do think that Simon is really just hanging in by a thread right now, and being happy to be at the bottom of that alliance, you know, tells me that he is basically just trying to get to the merge right now. And if he gets to the merge, maybe he goes beast mode and he wins some immunities to the end. I do think there is a potential for a Sean and Simon team up that could happen deep into this game. And I think that Sean would want to sit next to someone like a Simon at the end of the game. That is if his own heroes will forgive him for turning his back on that heroes alliance. That's it really for my top 5 takes here for this episode. One of the things that stood out for me was on the Next On Survivor part that happened at the end of the episode, where George declares war on the supervillains tribe. Man, I love that guy. He's good TV. Tomorrow night is going to be absolutely lit. Make sure that you subscribe, put on your notifications so you know when I go live to talk about it, because it looks like George and Shani is going to throw this next challenge, and that they're holding 2 people hostage in their tribe right now. Australian Survivor is slamming it out of the park this season. I was very skeptical of this season coming in with half returnees and half newbie players, but the returnee players and, you know, Liz, they're really showing up this season. So well done, well done. I take a bow, Australian Survivor. More of this, please. Encore. In any case, that's it for now. Talk to you guys tomorrow night. Can't wait for it. See ya. Bye.